Hi, my name is Suzanne, and I'm a Dragonfly Spirit Amplifier owner and promoter. Since I've spoken with my spirit guides via the Dragonfly many times now, I wanted to share with you my own personal experiences and more about the Dragonfly system. First, I wanted to tell you how I got involved with the Dragonfly and how I met Richard Renaud, the developer. So a few years ago, one of my coworkers came to me and said, "Suzanne, would you like to talk to your deceased father?" And I thought to myself, okay, this is a really weird conversation. And she proceeded to tell me that she had been talking to one of her clients, and her clients had experienced this Dragonfly Spirit box and was able to talk to her father, who passed away a year or two prior. And Danielle said, you know, would you like to experience it? I can get Richard to come in and host a session with us. So anyways, I thought, okay, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And Danielle invited Richard to come in. So Richard came into our class, and it was myself, Danielle, and one other participant. And we all hooked up into this box, and Richard behind it and plugged us all in. And as I'm listening to the voices that are coming through, amplified by the Dragonfly, I was getting messages. And of course, that was unbelievable to me. So what I did was I took Nikolai's headset and put it on, and it was the exact same track, and I was hearing exactly the same message. So then I exchanged Danielle's headset, and the same thing, the exact same track. I was hearing my own message, but Danielle and Nikolai were receiving their own message, which had nothing to do with my message. So that right away intrigued me, because I thought, oh my goodness, here I am listening to the same sound clip that everybody else is listening to, but the message was unique to me. Thus my fascination with the system. And so very soon, shortly thereafter, we got more involved with Richard and the Dragonfly. So today I have invited Richard Renaud himself to join us because I wanted to talk to him and have him tell us more about the Dragonfly. And so you, the viewers, can understand more about this whole process. So thank you, Richard, for being on this video call with me today.
Thank you, Susan, for having me. This is awesome.
Now, when we first met, you told me something very interesting about the Dragonfly, which again caught my attention, because I'm a very left-brain person. And
right.
To me, I need evidence. I need, you know, science behind the technology. And of course, we've had multiple discussions. So I've learned more about the Dragonfly system. However, I would love for you to share with the audience who better to tell this story than yourself, because you're the one that told it to me. But when you first created or invented the Dragonfly, you also had an experience. So if you could please share with us.
Sure. So in the beginning, when I created the Dragonfly, of course, it came from a book that I read called Breakthrough, an Amazing Experiment with Electronic Communication with the Dead, which blew me away. And in the book, it explained 3 experiments. So when they did it originally, they created a recording on a reel-to-reel machine and then played that recording back. And in the book, it describes how you have to like tune in, and there was like mediumship involved, etc. So when I tried it, I tried one of the experiments, and I followed one of the procedures that was given to me by my experience of talking to the dead through a trance psychic. And so after having followed that experience, when I tried it, the first thing I heard was, "We have you found." And I was like blown away, going, oh my goodness, I just actually heard a voice. And so I believed it was a recording, which was very interesting. And they made me believe it was a recording. And then as things went by, I should say, as time went by, because I would listen and listen, and then I would scratch out what I was listening because it changed. And like, no, that couldn't be, because it just changed to this, but no, maybe I heard it wrong. I took all these notes, and through, call it over the course of about a month, they made me realize that the recording, there is no recording. It's actually a live conversation. And that just blew me away. So when I saw how they were changing words because they understood that I wrote down those words, then of course that just blew my mind and moved everything forward, because now I realize we're having a live, real conversation versus in this book, it was perceived as a recording. So they've been teaching me a lot. And in the beginning, I had to learn a lot about communicating with them. I had to learn, in a way, how to ask questions. I had to learn how they communicate, because they not only communicate through audio, they communicate through visuals. I would get certain feelings. My mind would drift somewhere. All of this was part of the communication. And it took me time to learn that. So when I start teaching Dragonfly classes where I would get everyone connected, these are the things I had to express, because if I've experienced it, someone else will experience it. And then, of course, we have the fun of talking to various people from the other side, and that's a different ball of wax itself. So it's, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was quite the journey.
Absolutely. And I remember the same, things happening to me where, sometimes the conversation would continue because I got what they said and then they were moving forward. And so in the same sound clip, you can hear many sentences. It's not just one word or a phrase. It often can be a whole conversation in that one sound bite.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I think you mentioned at the beginning that you took the Dragonfly box to a paranormal society. Is that correct?
Yes. In the beginning, because I was looking for other people to try this out, I contacted a paranormal society and I took it to them. There were 9 participants. They all, of course, they had no idea what to expect. So they followed my procedure. I did the connection, we did the prayer, and then I had them listen to the same sound clip, but they would all go one by one, and they would write notes down of what they heard, and then no one else could see the notes, so there was no preconceived ideas and stuff. And so every participant heard something different, of course, but that blew them away because they were baffled by, how is this possible? What am I listening to? So that was a good validation and experience at the same time.
Yeah. And I know the first time we hosted an event with you here, I think there was about 20, 25 people, and I was fascinated because, again, you've created the system so there's a splitter, so multiple people are listening to the same soundtrack via the same MP3 player. So all of a sudden we had this room of 20, 25 people, and I knew they were all listening to the same soundtrack. And again, each individual had their own unique messages and quite personalized messages, because even in that class, people were hearing messages from people who had passed on, or just, their team of spirit guides. And I even remember one session we had, it was so funny because the guy kept hearing a telephone, and in retrospect, you had talked to him and he didn't hook up the way he should have, because there is a protocol that we are following when we first link up. And we're not going to go into that because that's privy to the people, obviously, who are Dragonflyers, where they have the box and they're working with it. But it is a guided, instruction at the beginning to ensure the success of the experience. And he didn't do that. And so, of course, all he kept hearing was the telephone, as if they were his team of spirit guides were trying to phone him to say, hook up, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing is they're in control, realize how much control they're in. And because with the Dragonfly system, as you know, there's 3 components. You've got the Dragonfly, the file, and then your mental connection. And if any of those is not done, it's like not dialing a phone number. You're not going to talk to anyone.
That's right. That's right. And it's almost unbelievable to conceive that we can talk to the spirit world. So why is the Dragonfly different than going to a psychic who talks to the other side?
So that's a good question. The main difference is you're getting the information directly from the source.
Mhm.
versus a psychic can hear the information, but they can also put their twist on it, or they could put their interpretation on it. So because the information is meant, say, for your ears, when someone else's ears is hearing it, they'll hear the words, or they'll get the impressions, and how they interpret it would be their way of communicating the message. Now, when you hear it directly, again, they can communicate not only through words, they'll communicate through imagery, they'll make your mind drift somewhere, they'll do everything so you get the answer. The other side, or the other part to communicating directly with your guides, is they can also work with you in a much deeper level within yourself. So they're going to help you on multiple levels, not just simply by answering your questions. They affect you on like spiritual, emotional, psychic, many levels that just amplifies your life. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
always think of the game telephone, and that's one of the things I've mentioned to people. With the game of telephone, you tell somebody something, they tell somebody something, and then by the time it goes around and back to you, it's the information is convoluted. So I think of it in that way, where a medium is connecting with their spirit guides who are connecting with your spirit guides, and so therefore
Right.
it's going through that circle. So by the time that the medium is interpreting the data, it could be slightly skewed. And also, when I've worked with clients on the Dragonfly, I have found that when they relay to me the information and they're asking me to sort of interpret it, I ask them what is their interpretation, and often the way I've interpreted it is based on my biased opinion, where their understanding of it is different, because they will relate to it through their own life experiences. And
Exactly.
that fascinates me, Richard, because even with myself, I asked my spirit team a question, and the answer they relayed to me was something that nobody possibly could have relayed to me, because of the fact they knew me. My spirit guides know me, and so therefore they know that
Exactly.
information. And where I think a medium, they're not knowing your history, they don't know your persona, your personality, the things that have gone on in your life. So of course they're relaying it in a way that is, I guess, informal.
The psychic person only knows so much information,
Yeah.
and when it relates to your personal life and something deep within you, right, how could someone possibly get all the information to relate to you? At the
Yeah.
same time, you get ultimate privacy, because what if you wanted to discuss something that you don't even want the psychic to know, right? You now have ultimate privacy,
Yeah.
because no one else will be able to tune into your conversation.
And one of the things that also you mentioned to me years ago was that, we're talking to a highly intellectual team of spirit guides. Can you kind of tell me a little bit more about who we're communicating
Yes.
with when we talk to the other side?
Spirit guides, or I refer to them mainly as spirit guides. They can also be called angels, ascended masters, etc. But spiritual guides, they're a group of souls that have been with you from the moment you were created. They've shared all the experience that you've experienced. They've experienced everything that you've experienced. They were there from the dead start, and they will be with you for eternity. Um, they love you and they want the best for you. So they usually communicate, like a lot of people refer to their gut, that is your spiritual guides. They're the ones who give you all those impressions. So since they know everything about you, they can refer to things in your past. They can refer to people. They know what you were thinking, what you were feeling, because they were there. So they have a
Mm-hmm.
depth of knowledge that definitely they can draw on. But at the same time, they're connected to all other souls, and they know everything. So there's it's like the spiritual internet. Basically, anything you want to know, they have the answer to. And they also understand what you understand. So they will communicate something to you in a way that you would understand it, even though it could be a complex situation. Like if you want to talk about, say, quantum physics, and you've never
Mm-hmm.
studied quantum physics, they'll explain the concepts in a way that you would get to go, oh, I see, in a
Yeah.
generalized way. Then if you were to go to a quantum physicist, it would be a whole new ball of wax, because they would have to start from the dead start, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so anything you want to find out, it's unlimited. I mean, from baking to taking care of kids, to what's going on with my car, to relationships, to business advice, to world politics, you name it, they know it. Like, there is no limit. The limit is your question. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, totally understand that, because I've asked all kinds of questions, and of course I've received information accordingly. Now, one of the things I tell everyone when we connect to our team of spirit guides, they're not there to foretell our future, rather they're guides. So they're guiding us to
Right.
find the answers that often we know within us, or if we're oblivious, they're there to guide us on the right path. And so therefore we have to interpret the information from a perspective. And I kind of look at it as, if when they reply, I've got to look outside of myself as to what the meaning is, because if I'm thinking just one way, then of course I may not fully recognize or understand what they're trying to tell me.
Right, because I always say you're the captain of the ship, and they're your crewmates, and
Yeah.
the crew never tell the captain what to do. But that's exactly right. They're going to give you an answer, and you really need to interpret the answer. Now, sometimes the answer is very direct. Sometimes it needs a bit of thinking or some research. Google has been my best friend. But the other part of it is, sometimes they'll give you the answer and it's hard for you to accept what you're hearing. So sometimes people are listening, and even though they heard it the first time, in a sense, they're arguing with what they hear, because they're having problems accepting the information, because it's mind-blowing, or it's just not what they expected. But that's part of communicating with the other side. The information is not what you expect, because you're asking the question, they're trying to answer.
Personally, myself, I've heard the same messages over and over, not just that day, but even weeks later and months later, because I track everything that my spirit team is telling me. So it's fascinating that I get these messages that are very similar. And it's almost like, okay, Susie, you're a little dense here. We're going to keep repeating it because you're not getting what we're saying. And I have to laugh at that, because when it does come into fruition, it's like, wow, why didn't I get this a long time ago? But yet they were, putting me on
Yes,
that
exactly.
path.
Yeah. Interesting point is, everybody I know who's worked with the Dragonfly does get repeated messages. Now, some people start blaming the file they're listening to as the problem with this. The answer is no, they are actually repeating it. And even me, the inventor, I get repeated messages as well. Now, there's a couple of components to this. One, they may be using a phrase that is very apt. So maybe it's just it's like coining a phrase. So they're saying it a certain way, like, okay, my group would say, right? So I would hear the same phrase in different parts, but it's very apt to the question, and it does answer the question. It's just they say it a certain way. Now, the other part is they'll say a message, it's still apt to the question, but it could be a message that you've heard before, but maybe without you knowing, you've asked a similar question, and they're trying to drive a point. So they're going to keep driving the point until you get it, or until you start listening. From personal experience, the biggest problem I've ever had is not fully listening. And that's something I've had to learn, even we're up to just after 3 years now. But listening to what they're saying is big, critical. And when you get it, it's like mind blown.
Well, I always equate to the fact that, there's my time, and then there's the time of the spirit world. And the spirit world operates on no space and time continuum, where, here we are drawn into the time factor. And I think that's one of the things my spirit guides keep telling me. It's about time. And so there is always a timing involved in things, because if, again, I'm trying to ask a futuristic question and the time is not right for me to fully understand what they're trying to guide me towards. I have to just, trust their guidance and know that it will manifest into a
Yes.
way that I'll understand eventually. So I get the word timing constantly when I talk to the spirit guides, because I'm always wanting to know what is going to happen in the future. And, again, they're not there to predict the future for me, but just guide me towards it. And that I have to keep in mind.
Yeah, they're going to help you navigate,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of trusting that navigation, because sometimes the things they may tell you may be kind of like, you've got to be kidding me. You want me to do what? Yet at the end of it, you're like, that worked out better than I
Yeah.
ever had thought.
Yeah.
I've got numerous stories of things working out. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Well, and everybody's spirit experience is unique. And I even had one woman I was chuckling about because her spirit team, said a few words of profanity, but that's her. She
Yeah.
had, quite the potty mouth. And so she was shocked when they swore, but yet she swears. And it was almost like they were trying to get her attention. And they specifically were using names of people in her life as well, and so that was quite interesting too, that they were giving her a lot of specific information. But again, I guess it depends on the question you ask and, what, I think they're just trying to get her attention, and sometimes they'll use unique ways of doing it. But as you mentioned, ways that
That's
you're
true.
needing to hear the information.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Now, I have to ask, do you know who your spirit guides are? Tell us a little bit about your team.
So my team of spiritual guides were very interesting, because in the beginning I didn't know who they were. I didn't know how they communicated. And so I had to learn all this. One of the quickest things I saw was how they would manipulate imagery. Because I'm visually based in my thinking, they presented me an image and then I would manipulate the image, and it's like we were communicating that way. And that was very interesting. I've had them communicate via feelings. And just sometimes people have reported this, and I've had this, you get like this download of knowledge where it's just all of a sudden you get like, call it an hour of information in a matter of minutes. And you're just like, oh my goodness, okay, now I get it. They have been sarcastic, funny, very direct. But one thing they've done is they've always tried to make me understand that I am the captain, and they've been driving that point. I've even said to them, I know you can't tell me what to do. And they go, that's right. I'm like, okay, but I want to find out, whatever it is. Mine personally remained nameless for about just over a year, and because I would always tell people, after you get to know your guides, it's time to give them a name. So after about a year, I started thinking about that, and so I finally called mine the Knights, like the Knights of the Round Table. So I've always saw a table kind of roundish and these people. So yeah, so my group's called, I've also learned is, it's been over 3 years, and I have to say I've trusted them 100% right up until now, and they have not yet steered me wrong. And I've made some drastic moves, and I've done some drastic things where I've even, bite my nails going, I can't believe you want me to do this, or I can't believe you're suggesting this. And then everything's always worked out. I mean, they've blown me away. When they said something was going to work out, and to take the leap of faith, call it that, it's been always true, even till this day. So, because I ultimately say that if I can't trust them, then how can I expect anyone else to trust them? So I maintain, like, again, up to this point, I've never had a problem, and it's always been a good outcome. So I just got to continue trusting what's going on. As they always say, if you can trust, you can always trust your gut. Well, your spirit team is that. Yeah. So, and usually people rely on their gut more than anything else. And that I've done that too.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey and continues to be one.
Yeah. Well, and some of the stories that, have stuck out in my head, again, are stories that people have relayed to me that surprised them, where they would get answers to questions that were, true to, how do I want to say it, but true to them. And to me, that's quite impressive when
Right.
people get information that is really directed to them. Now, in all the years that you've been teaching people how to use the Dragonfly, is there a story or two that, that, you know, just comes to the forefront as pretty profound?
Well, I'm always interested when they talk to a loved one and they
Mm,
heard the loved one's voice.
right.
That's always like, I mean, to me, that's the coolest thing. So I've had a number of those. It's always fun for me when you can see the expression on their face when they had a profound moment or they just got something and they start laughing. I love it when people are laughing. And I've had I've had numerous clients, and I mean, to see how some of them interact with their guides or to see what their guides do is just hilarious. I mean,
Mhm.
I've had people talk about relationships. I've had talking about, I had one client who asked, wasn't too sure what to ask. And I said, well, why don't you just ask them, like have a conversation? And they said, so we're going to talk about the guy you're about to meet. And her face just lit right up like, oh, who?
Uh-huh.
Um, I've had people ask like intriguing questions from, say, scientists, and were profound by the answer. I've
Mhm.
had a client talk to like an author of a book,
Oh, wow.
and was like really interested in the way they responded because they had like a British accent and they gave their opinion of the book they read, the book they wrote while they were alive. So it's kind of interesting. Um, yeah, it just goes on because everyone has such unique experiences. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint any one moment. It's such a joy to see everyone discover their team for the first time because it is quite the discovery.
Yeah. And you can see their expression on their face going like, holy moly, did I just hear that? And it's a
Yeah,
surprise to
exactly.
people. And um, I know even several people that I've put on the Dragonfly have heard messages in different languages, which is fascinating to me that, you know,
Yes.
I mean, from
Yes.
Chinese to French to Egyptian to, geez, I
Uh,
can't even
uh,
remember all the languages that I've heard at this point.
Polish,
Yes.
Japanese.
Yes. And again, here I am, I'm listening to the same track and my messages
But
are,
the point is, whatever is your majority spoken language, they too will communicate in that language. So I've had like Polish, Russian, as you say, Egyptian, um, and up here in Northern Ontario, there's a lot of bilingualism. And from the Dragonflyers around here, they're saying that they're speaking in both English and French just
yeah.
like they speak. So, the answer is half half. And I've even had that with clients. So I've had clients that speak Mandarin. Actually, I had one client, and this was kind of cool, is I warned them, I said, they're going to speak in multiple languages because you speak Mandarin, they may also speak Mandarin. And he's like, oh, okay. He says, well, I hope they speak in English. I said, well, you'll find out. And when he says, could you speak in English? They said, something like, so you want us to speak in English, but they said that in Mandarin, and then they would speak English, and then they would switch it to Mandarin, and he started laughing. And I said, what's interesting about all this is the Mandarin they're using words you do understand. They haven't given you words you don't understand. But I had a client hear a message in, I think it was Punjabi, but
Uh-huh.
it was a mother tongue Punjabi, and there were some words they didn't understand. They actually had to go to like their ancestors or something to say, hey, what does this mean? And get further information because they just weren't familiar with that. I
Right.
also love it. Mine always throw words that I've never heard of. So I Google the word, and sure enough, it's a word and it has a meaning and it's very apt to the question, but it's like, thanks for extending my vocabulary.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And I yesterday I was talking to one of the Dragonfly owners and she said that they told her to look it up in Google. Like they actually told her to do
Oh,
that. And yeah, and I could even
that's
tell you there's
hilarious.
been a few times where I've repeated a question and they've blatantly come back saying, but we've already told you. Like, you know, and
Yes, I've had that too.
it's sort of like, yeah, you did tell me, but I wasn't quite getting it. But they blatantly just say, we told you already, you know, and again, they'll rephrase it in different ways. But the main, you know, the end result is, listen, we've told you, you know, open your ears and listen, you know. So it's, they are quite comical.
Yeah.
With a sense of humor, and you know, that's a lot of fun when you can joke a little bit with your spirit team. Now, I did some investigation because I wanted the listeners to understand this is not your typical, I guess what they call spirit box, or there's another name.
Oh, yes, right.
A white noise box. This is not your typical white noise box.
Or ghost box or...
Exactly, because I think a lot of these types of systems, it's almost like you're listening to multiple radio stations, where what you made is different because you're listening to the same sound clip that's repeating itself over and over. And how many seconds is it?
The sound clip that I use is 2 seconds long, yeah, and put on a repeat. Yeah. But all of this, these spirit boxes, the whole concept comes back to that book. Because the Konstantin Rodev, who wrote the book, was the originator. And so everybody having the hunger to communicate with the other side have been trying to figure it out. And so that's where these spirit boxes have been coming from, because it's all from the rumors going, we can use radio, we can use this. And the most common spirit box that you can see out there is there's a certain type of radio that when you put it on automatic scan, you'll hear random words and people think that's communication from the other side. Yeah. The biggest issue, or I should say the biggest belief out there, is that the other side can manipulate the physical world. And the truth of it is they cannot. So with the Dragonfly, it's amplifying your psychic ability. And they are communicating with you psychically, because even though you're listening to a sound file, they're actually talking to you in your head. It's just the sound file helps your brain accept the communication that's going on. But the sound file has no actual words in it. If the sound file had an actual recording of actual words, every listener would repeat the message exactly as it was phrased and would hear the exact same thing in the exact same way, and there'd be no tricking around it. Yeah. But with this file that was created, it's designed specifically for to help your brain accept what's going on, and then correlated with the Dragonfly that amplifies your ability, the other side communicates clearly. Yeah, and that is a valuable point to really, you know, just further discuss, because you know, with this other technology, you know, the word was, I think, cat, and it was just the same word that they kept replaying, because they were replaying the same white noise over and over and over again. But it was a whole bunch of, like I said, it was almost like the radio dial was being, you know, changed, and there was a lot of convoluted chatter, but they kept replaying this one area, which was, like I said, maybe the word cat. Whereas with the Dragonfly, I mentioned earlier, here I had a room of, you know, 20 to 25 people, and everybody was hearing their own words. It wasn't one word repeating itself, because again, that white noise that you listen to, there is no words on there. So you're perceiving or receiving information from your spirit team in verbiage, that we use the white noise as sort of the background to help our consciousness, because most people wouldn't believe that they could actually have a dialogue with the spirit world without having sound. And so therefore, we don't quiet our mind to get that information typically from the spirit world, where what you've done, I think, is very clever, where you've given us that connection that makes it a little bit more easier for us to understand that we can communicate with the spirit world. And Henry, who purchased the Dragonfly, said to me, it's like the amplifier is
amplifying the neurotransmitters of our brain, literally, helping us stretch our ability to connect on the spiritual plane because of the frequency that's being emitted by the Dragonfly Spirit Box. And then combining it with the white noise gives us that capability to hear sound, but it translates that white noise into actual words and sentences. Is that a good way to describe it?
Your guides are manipulating what you hear. Mm-hmm. And actually, I just thought of another example. Is I had a client who was hearing something very clearly, like clear. Mm-hmm. And his wife came in, and he was kind of skeptical, and he handed the earphones over to his wife, who went, "I don't hear anything." And he goes, "What?" And he put it back in, and he goes, "No, clear as a bell." And she goes, "I don't hear anything." And he was just dumbfounded because she didn't go through the process, hence didn't pick up the phone and dial the number while he was totally dialed in. And his group actually commented and said, "Proof is in the light when the light is on." And I thought that was a very interesting statement, because the light was on in him, it was off in her, and yet there it was. They were able to manipulate the sound in him, but her group was not connected with her, so there was nothing being heard. Yeah. And but you got it.
Another thing too that I find fascinating is because the box is amplifying, the vibration in the room, or the energy, or the wavelength, or the frequencies, however you want to describe it. You don't even have to verbalize your question. Now, I like to write my questions down because I keep track of the segment that I'm on, and I like to go back to see, again, if I've asked the same question, if the answer is similar. So I track everything that I'm doing on the Dragonfly. But because of the fact whether I've written the question down or thought it in my mind, my team hears it. And then again, the answer that is relayed is specific to the question I'm thinking or have written down. And I have to be careful with that, because sometimes I write a question down and I ask it, and then I start to formulate my next question. And then I can hear on, when I'm listening to my spirit team, they'll start changing their answer. And I'm going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then I realize, because I'm already thinking my next question, that they're starting to respond to it. And again, I'm on the same track. And all of a sudden, the statement is totally different. Again, how can that be, Richard? It's it's fascinating.
Right. Because it's live.
It's live. And I liked how you said that. It's live. You're having a conversation live with your spirit team.
And honestly, one of the best experiences with the Dragonfly is just having a conversation. Like, I too write down my questions, but sometimes I'm in a mode where I just want to have a chit chat. And so we just talk away. I get their feedback on something. And so I just tell them all my thoughts, and then I listen. They give me, tell me their thoughts, and it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you get a lot out of that, because it's very engaging for sure.
I mean, it is. It's fascinating. And I truly thank you for inventing this system, because I'm very intuitive. I've, been called a psychic, even when I was young, because I've had this natural, understanding of things and perceptions and receiving information. So to me, I like it for the fact that I can talk to my own guides, where it's not anything that I really did a lot of. I was more or less being more that, translator for other people. And now I can use the Dragonfly in that sense as well, where my team will connect to, a client's team. And, together we can, work on the Dragonfly to come to resolutions that will, be supportive of the client. So there's so many ways that we can use the Dragonfly. And I'm always hearing about new experiences from new Dragonfly owners, in regards to how they're receiving messages. And again, it's been very fascinating. So thank you, Richard, for creating the Dragonfly. And anything else?
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah. And anything else that you just off the top of your head, you can think about sharing with our listeners?
I would say that the main thing is realize the Dragonfly will absolutely amplify your life. There is no question that you cannot ask. There is nothing you cannot find out. If you're curious about anything, um, whatever field you're in, they will give you answers to. They will expand you in ways that you've never imagined. They will, if you're looking for a change in your life, they will definitely help you change. Um, Again, nothing is off limits, and it's, I mean, there's no words to describe the experience. You simply have to experience it and then go from there. But it's unique. It's very interesting, and I mean, your guides are, it's incredible. It's an extension of you, and it, there's it's again, it's hard to describe. It's just it's so enriching that how could we have lived without it? Like, I mean, I'm on it every single day. Like, I communicate constantly, sometimes 4 times a day, which is down from when I first discovered it. I had 6-hour-long conversations because I was so excited and intrigued, and I had so many questions. Now I've got it down to, like, I'll do an hour, but sometimes it'll be an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, or I can't imagine a day I've never not asked something or talked
Yeah.
about something. Like, it's one who has owned a Dragonfly has only but responded with positive comments. I mean, I've had people reach out to me because they're questioning on something that was said because they didn't understand it, but the overall is always extremely positive. They're excited, they're thanking me, and they're just blown away by the communication. And I mean, why not? This definitely empowers you to be
Yes.
more of what you want to be. So all I can say is enjoy it.
Absolutely. And another story that I heard recently from one of the Dragonfly owners was she actually was on it for quite some time and fell asleep. And when she woke up, the message that they were repeating was, go to
Oh,
sleep,
wow.
or go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. And, so again, she just laughed because it was like they were telling her what, what to do, because she had fallen asleep in the chair listening to, messages. And I want to also mention
That's
that
hilarious.
recently you developed a personal Dragonfly system. So can you quickly just tell us a little bit
Yes,
about that?
sure. The original Dragonfly was designed so that, call it 30 to 50 people could connect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, since we have the situation we're in, I redeveloped another version called the Dragonfly Personal, and the purpose is up to 2 people can connect and experience the Dragonfly and communicate with the other side. So it's more of like going from a national telephone system down to your own cell phone. So this
Yeah.
is a personalized version. It's easier. It's battery powered, so it's extremely portable. And yeah, there you have it. It's cute and adorable.
Yes.
It's easy to operate, and it's going to give you everything you've ever wondered. It's as equally to the original. Um, it's more portable, and it's designed for personal use. I
Yeah.
would enjoy it. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's awesome.
Well, and one of the things I love about the personal, yes, it's portable and more affordable, by the way, as well, because
That's true.
the original system was designed for owner operator to take it into places, or use it where many people can connect, where this is more of a private. So you're right, with COVID, this allows the interaction with 2 people, the operator and one other person, or possibly 2 people using the system. But
Exactly.
nonetheless, it's very nice and portable, and as I mentioned, affordable. But because of the fact that this is a personal unit, again, one of the things I remember you saying early on was that we have access to guides of everything. So we could have,
Right.
call in our spirit guide of science, or call in our spirit guide of financial security, or call in our spirit guide of, relationship counseling. So literally having your own personal system allows you to tap into almost every kind of therapist or educator or advisor that you can possibly think about. And that's how I've used it. I've tapped into, different advisors as such, to get information that would help me in my business. Or, and here's another thing. I adopted a dog, and Richard, you know this, but our
yes.
viewers don't. I adopted a dog from Mexico, and he came to us with a lot of anxiety disorders. And he would shake if he heard the fan, or he would shake when he met someone new. There was so much anxiety. And when I asked my team about what I could do to help him, literally their answer was, he's like a human. And so that made me understand that to help him through the anxiety is no different than talking to somebody who has anxiety. And so I started talking to him, my dog, Tex. I started talking to him and saying, it's going to be okay. And it's okay to be anxious. And, this is because it's something new. And I just kept, the verbal dialogue going with my dog. And, eventually his anxiety lessened. That he, in several months, he hasn't had any anxiety other than one major trip that we went on in the car. And then again, I just sort of talked to him, but that was several months where daily he would shake several times during the day. And also he got into another situation where he tore his ligament. And so I asked my team, I guess I have a vet in, that comes on call with my spirit team, and, asked what can I do for Tex in regards to his torn ligament. And basically they said nutrition. And it was clear as day, just a single word, nutrition. So I have him on all kinds of nutritional protocol. But that to me was very fascinating, that here you have access to literally any kind of advisor that you possibly can conceive. You can ask any question and you're going to get your team of spirit guides who are going to answer. So it's almost like they know what questions you're going to ask, and the right team is going to be there for you.
Well, interestingly enough, is when you have the Dragonfly in your environment, and some people call it get the ideas while they shower. I've noticed that the more you use the Dragonfly, the more you're connected with your guides. And so you get things like, okay, why am I thinking about this right now? And then of course you start talking to your guides about it, and that's exactly what they wanted you to do. So sometimes I've found that you ask questions, but it's almost like they put the dangle of the carrot. They want you to talk about that now. So it's like, how do we get, okay, we'll just plant the idea. Right. And you're like, why is my mind going here? And then I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
One sec, guys, I'm brushing my teeth. I'll be right there.
Well,
but yeah, exactly. A lot of clients have said to me that after having a Dragonfly session, their animals respond differently. So I had a client who had had a farm basically, and had a whole bunch of animals. And after experiencing the Dragonfly for the first time, she said the animals were completely different, like calmer, more relaxed. And I've heard that from several people with animals, that the animals always seem to be in a different state. And when you have the Dragonfly in your own environment, I've noticed that dogs, cats, they always want to be where the Dragonfly is. So they always kind of sit, or if you're about to have a session, they're like by your feet, like they're always there. So there's different.
That was actually the question, or not the question, but the statement. I remember you telling me that it's good to have the Dragonfly on, even if you're not using it, because it's amplifying the frequencies in that environment. And that is something that I did initially. And I still do. I shouldn't say initially, but I still do this, where I have the Dragonfly on. And I did that a lot when I first got my dog, because I wanted him, like I said, to get over his fears and anxiety. And because you had mentioned that, I always had the Dragonfly on in my right. office, because I bring my dog to work every day. So that's where I have the Dragonfly on, is in my office. So, and I just turned it back on because I did have it on yesterday, and then I forgot to turn it on when we started our meeting. But I do like to have it on for that reason, to amp up my own intuitive vibes, because I do believe by having that higher frequency in the room, and however you've created it, I know that mojo works, you know, that it's
Yeah,
amplifying
exactly.
that, you know, that higher frequency. So again, we have that greater consciousness to that higher realm of energy. And I think on that realm, and the way I also equate it is that, you know, there are various dimensions of frequency. And of course, us being humans, we see in that 3D capacity, but there's bugs that only see in 2D, you know, and likewise, you know, there is that fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimension. So when we're tapping into the dragonfly, it's tapping into these different frequencies. This is, you know, what I surmise. So you can, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is why I think some people, when they go on the dragonfly, they may experience hearing, you know, voices from people who have passed on, where others may experience more of the angelic guides. I think it's these different wavelengths, but I know that the dragonfly is amplifying at such a high frequency, it allows us to tap into these different dimensions. So is that correct in what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's also the other side does their best to communicate. So if a person has been anxious or has been wondering about talking to friends that have passed, you know, those friends have heard that message, and so when they get the chance, they're going to step in. They're going to want to talk. Now, granted, all this is with the permission of your guides. Like, your guides are your protectors as well. So they definitely, when you set up the environment with them, they're going to make sure that anyone you invite follows the rules. Nothing bad ever happens to anyone communicating with the dragonfly. It's always very safe, very easy, and your team of guides will definitely ensure that everybody follows the rules. Nobody is allowed to communicate if they're not following the rules. Like, nothing, because I've had people say, oh, you know, is anything dangerous or evil going to come through? I said, no, once we set it up, your team is there to ensure that everything is safe and sound. So it's going to be smooth sailing and a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you've put in the invocation and, you know, the prayer of intention. So that's all part of the sequence that we follow before hooking up to our spirit guides that ensures that safety. So thank you for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, wonderful, Richard. Well, this was fantastic, and I look forward to sharing this with everyone. And again,
Awesome.
thank you for inventing the dragonfly. And I certainly know that it was the intention of my spirit guides to have us connect. And I've learned a lot since meeting you. So it's been wonderful. Thank you.